Hi, my name's Tracy Bishop. I'm Deputy Head Teacher at Sunmarke School. I also oversee exams here at Sunmarke School and COVID as well. Now it's been one whole year since disruption started, one whole year since we started to lock down, we went to remote teaching and had all the COVID safety measures in school. 1 year of a child's life, 1 year of a year 11 student and a year 13 student is huge. And we really do recognise that here. Now we're back in school and positive cases have somewhat calmed down. We're getting back to some kind of normality. Today, we're looking at 85% attendance in year 11 and 13, and we're delighted with that. We're still running online classes, which are fantastic. And the innovation that we've seen with the online classes have been immense over the past year. However, there is nothing like a child being in school. And now that the UK government has announced its plans of how we're going to assess the students, what we're going to talk about today with the panel here is what that means for Sunmarke students and how we can support them in ensuring they get the best grades possible for their GCSEs, A-Levels, IB or BTEC. So we have a panel here of experts, people who you'll know that are familiar for you. We have Mr. Bishop, Head of Year 13, Mr. Cheng, Head of Year 11, and the lovely Miss Singh, our Careers Advisor, supporting students with their university choices and how to enter university. So first of all, let's start with Year 11 and GCSE. So Mr. Cheng, how is it going to be different in GCSE this year?
So for students that take English language and computer science, these are the only two courses that are actually going to have the external GCSE exams in May. And the students are being very well prepared for those by their subject teachers at the moment. For every other subject, we are going to be putting in what's called a centre assessed grade. And this is where teachers take the information that they know about the students from their mock exams, from their engagement and assessments over the previous 2 years of the course. So we take everything that's together and that goes into what we call an evidence basket, which we can then use to give a best picture grade of where that student would be. And we're taking a lot into account with this to make sure that we're giving the students the grades that they would be getting had the pandemic not affected them. So we're doing lots and lots of moderation and lots of looking at the evidence that we're collecting to make sure it's as fair as possible.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, isn't it, that they're not necessarily missed content, but where we refine skills, I think that's where we feel, because they've not been in school, that's where we feel that there's a little bit of a gap.
And it's really tough. So, for example, my Year 11 class will all of a sudden, if the exams were running, they'd be sitting 3 1-hour 15-minute exams for paper 1 and 3 1-hour 15-minute exams for paper 2.
Yeah.
Well, they've not been writing for that long, for a long time. So if we suddenly give our exams exactly like that, it's not really fair because it's not what we've had time to develop the children up to. So we're adjusting very slightly what we're doing in terms of our assessments as a centre to make sure that our assessments are appropriate to the students that we have in front of us.
Very nice. I suppose it's a bit like trying to run a marathon with no prior training.
A little bit, yeah, very much so. Very much so, and it's about giving them that grade that we feel would be the best grade the students would get under normal conditions.
Okay, so where I imagine our parents and some of our students might be a little bit confused is that some exams are happening and some aren't. So what is the difference where exams are happening? If you can explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, so at GCSE level we do 2 sets of courses. So we do GCSEs and for some of our subjects we do international GCSEs. All of these are sort of coordinated by British exam boards, so we have to go with what those exam boards say to us. Now, at the moment, only the Cambridge exam board out of all the GCSEs and IGCSEs is actually running any exams this year. So that's why English and computer science are still going to have their exams. All the other subjects have gone to the centre assessed grade, so we'll be using the centre assessed grade system for all those.
And it's also important that the children don't just concentrate on just this exam where they've got exams, because what we've got to remember that the rest of the world are in the same position.
Absolutely,
and the rest of the world will be, you know, it's not a level playing field anymore. we've got to think about what's appropriate for our children.
I think it's also really important that the students need to appreciate that when they leave year 11, it's not just a set of grades, it's a hell of a lot of skills that they pick up. And these skills that they may pick up in science, they will still be using in economics, in business studies, in BTEC, enterprise, even if they're not doing science. So that skill acquisition that we would normally really sort of fire hard on between now and the end of year 11, it's really important that still happens for their ongoing education.
Okay, so in 2 weeks' time we've got mock exams. They
We
start. What will they look like, and why is it important that children are in school in the run-up to those mock exams?
So for the mock exams, we are making sure that the mock exams, firstly, are not going to be like a classic mock exam. So it's not going to be, we're just using last year's paper. It's not going to be 100% a normal exam. We're creating the papers bespoke for each individual subject to make sure it's on what we're calling the secure content. In other words, the content that we know we have taught the students when they've been in lessons in full proper what we call normal learning, to make sure that we're taking into account the pandemic and hopefully making sure that we're buffering any effects that the pandemic might have on that. In some subjects, this may mean that students are getting a choice of questions. So the exam paper might split at a point and the students can choose one route or another, what best suits them. So teachers at the moment are covering these to make sure that they're going through class over the next 2 weeks, what that secure content is likely to be on the exam, to give the students a sort of a narrowed down version of what to focus on. And the mocks are only going to form a small part of that evidence basket that we talked about for creating the students' grades. So obviously we've got lots and lots of different evidence that we'll take into account.
So I think that's important to get that message across to parents. Whilst the mocks are important, they will just be a percentage of the overall child's grade. It will not be the final grade. So what we don't want children to get really stressed going into these mocks and thinking that this is the final grade. It is not. It is a percentage of their final grade. However, it's still important that they do very well and they're in school over the next couple of weeks. So let's think about now year 13, probably our most important year. This is the end game here at Sunmarke. And we have a fantastic sixth form team that have been supporting those students during this challenging time. So Mr. Bishop, can you talk about A-Levels, IB, BTEC and what that looks like for a student in year 13 at the moment?
Yeah, it's very wide because of the range of pathways that we're offering here at Sunmarke. So first of all is the A-Levels. The A-Levels, very similar to what Mr. Chang just said there, will not be going ahead. It will be built on evidence baskets in exactly the same way, other than for physics and for media. We have one difference here with compared to the GCSEs, in that some of this evidence basket will actually be contributed by those subjects that did AS exams previously. So they have even further support, and that is rock solid support, because there is no doubt with the exams qualifications that with the examining boards that those people are working at that level because they've done that in that formal environment with that particular subject. So that's very promising for our students because those AS results were very strong. With the IB, those decisions with the exams were made at a different level, and all of those exams will go ahead. However, content has been reduced, and it's been reduced in different ways within different subjects. So my subject, for example, they took out a particular type of question that is on both papers, which normally would take a lot of preparation for that style and would involve more research for our students. In other other subjects, such as English, entire units have actually been removed, or papers. Normally where they might do 2 papers, they will just do 1 paper. So the content has been adjusted accordingly for this year and also for next year. With the BTEC, then it's different for the, well, you have 2 different types of the BTEC with the 2 different new specifications. With the newer specifications where you have a formal exam, those exams will not take place. Those controlled assessments will not take place. And again, evidence baskets will be used, built up by the students to give that evidence to demonstrate the level that they're working at. The coursework, however, will be what we call externally verified, as it normally is. However, the number of assessed units, again, will be reduced. So these are quite complicated processes at the moment, and it's definitely handled better on a one-to-one basis when people are in, because there's a lot of interaction going on of what people need to do to change certain aspects of the coursework and whatever. So being in rather than speaking in a class and speaking online is far better substitute than interacting online.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bishop. I want to reassure parents and students as well of how we moderate the final grades to ensure a fairness. Now, at Sunmarke, we do have outstanding examination results, and we have had for the previous 4 years of our existence, if you like. That what outstanding means is about 75% of our students, so for a cohort of 100, 75 of them would be getting a top grade. And a top grade under Dubai is considered either a B or a grade 6 or above, and in IB a grade 5. So what does that mean? All our students, although we want the best for them, they cannot all get the top grades. So Mr. Cheng and Mr. Bishop, you can come in here however you feel appropriate. So how do we ensure this is fair? So students get the position, if you like, or the grade that they deserve, rather than us keep collecting evidence baskets so everyone gets the top grade.
So I suppose the first thing, if we think about the evidence baskets, is that each subject is deciding what goes into their evidence basket to make sure that for every student that's studying that subject, it's the same evidence. So we're not just going, let's get 5 things in for student A and 10 things in for student B. So I think that's the first thing that we need to make sure, and staff are putting a lot of careful thought in at the moment as to how we're building those baskets and what sort of information goes into them, from looking at the assessments that they've got, looking at the assessments that are coming up. So each individual course is going to decide that for itself in consultation with a member of the senior leadership team to make sure that it's of a robust enough level that we can trust this information, but also to make sure that we've got some parity between different faculties. Different subjects are going to have different amounts. If you're in graphic products, you've spent a long time doing a project, that needs to be a big part of your evidence basket. Whereas if you're in science, for my subject, we don't have any coursework on unexamined, so it makes sense for us to spend a lot more time looking at previous assessments and mock exams, first of all.
Well, that consistency and diligence that are key, as Mr. Cheng was pointing out there, will allow us then to, whilst we've categorised people within grades, to ensure fairness, then we will have a ranking system, which is now very, very commonplace. So the strongest level 9s will be placed at the top of the ranking. Somebody who is level 9 but not the same level, and level 9s and A stars and 7s can go a very long way themselves, can have a very big range amongst them. So those people would be ranked, and then should there be any form of adjustment, then that would be done fairly from using that system.
We're confident as well that we shouldn't have an adjustment, because we will be putting in grades that reflect this as an outstanding centre. So as long as we stay true to our students' true ability and the centre's historic ability, we won't have a problem with the examination boards. I'm confident of that.
Well, we saw that last year as well when we did put results in, and this was the first time that we had to do that, where the rankings and those estimates went in. In most cases, it was more a case that something would go up and be generous. But generally, the overwhelming majority of those estimates were considered to be absolutely perfectly correct.
So it's important to say that the government, the UK government, Ofqual, is trusting schools to be honest and fair to their students. Some of you as parents might think that, you know, your child isn't in favour as another child in class. I promise you that that's not going to happen. We will have several layers of quality assurance to ensure that the head of faculty has checked the teachers' assessed grades, and then they go to the centre assessed grades, which will be the head of school, Mr. Kelly, and myself, and also Dr. Hopkin will finally sign off those grades for your child. There is an appeals process. We hope it won't be needed. We hope that you feel it'll be as fair as we possibly can be, giving your child the best chance to enter the best pathway that they can. So we move on to, I'm going to skip ahead and then we'll come back to what we're going to do after the examination. So Amber, Mrs. Singh, what are we doing to support our students in terms of university? Universities must have a more difficult job than us with how do they ensure that it's fair in terms of the university places.
Yeah, so I think what's really important for the community to understand, for parents to understand, is that universities are very well aware of the COVID epidemic, and they have made adjustments as well. They are very open and clear about, we understand, that COVID is here. We understand that it may have impacted every single university that we deal with has done that. I think the other piece I think that's also really important to recognize is that despite the difficulties, we're actually looking at more Russell Group offers this year than we have in previous years, which is great. At the end of the day, I think what we have here at Sunmarke is we have an amazing and highly qualified team of university experts, and we all work together to ensure that those students are reaching their targets and reaching their goals so that we can get them into their university of choice.
Mm-hmm. And so there's going to be a gap in skills here. How do you think that will affect universities when they receive those Year 13 students in September?
Well, I think what probably will happen is, again, it's about that recognition that there has been a gap. However, we also know that gaps can be filled, and I think that universities will definitely take on that mantle to make sure that kids are prepared. But I think we are very confident that when students in Year 13 leave us at the end of June, they are 100% prepared for university, and everything is being done to prepare them for that.
So staff are very aware of what university predictions are. If a child in Year 13 is not looking like their evidence basket isn't going to demonstrate their university predictions, you will as parents hear from us. I guarantee you that. So we do everything in our power to make sure that the students are going to meet those university predictions with their evidence baskets. Now, the examination board has given us a date when they want all our centre assessed grades to be entered as a centre, and that date is the 18th of June, which happens to be a Friday, so it's not going to work for us. So we need to have a process before that to quality assure and make sure everything is as it should be, the grade for your students. So we're going to be working to around about the first week in June, gathering evidence for your child. In some cases, there will be an additional mock exam. In other cases, there won't. It really does depend on this subject and what is appropriate for the child to make sure that they have got all the skills demonstrated and knowledge demonstrated for their evidence basket. I spoke to heads of faculty on Thursday, and we all decided unanimously that there isn't one size fits all. There isn't one spreadsheet where we say this percentage is a mock exam, this percentage is coursework. There isn't one, because it's different for every subject. So we can't give you that information. Like I say, you speak to your subject teachers and they will tell you exactly what's expected for each particular subject. So, Mr. Bishop, how does it feel in the sixth form at the moment? And can you talk about the importance of being present in school?
Well, as the students have just returned, I think that they've realised how much they appreciate it and how much they miss it. It's been a fantastic buzz around the school. It's been, it really makes us as a team happy to see these students in and interacting with each other. The students are happy, and I think that they're aware that they have a unique opportunity. Yes, this is going to be different, but there's a lot of opportunities in how this is different that they can take. And if they're smart enough to take those opportunities in the way they can be taken, this doesn't have to be detrimental at all. It can be an advantage. They have small class sizes. They have access to expert teachers that not everybody will have. They've been taught in a different way than people who let's face it, are their competitors for those university places. Whilst online learning wasn't ideal, the education and the diet that those students had over that time was still far, far better than most countries and most schools that they will be competing with. So there is an opportunity, and they have to take that opportunity. And I think that they're very aware of it, and they're very up for that challenge.
Thank you. Again, we keep saying it. your children are better in school. They're perfectly safe in school. All the precautions are in place in the social distancing, and this is where they're going to make that extra final stride to make sure that they get the best possible grade. Talking about best possible grades, in terms of GCSE, even though it's not the end game because they'll go on to the post-16 pathway, the GCSE results do impact on university choices. Amber, can you explain a little bit more the kind of things that you've come across in terms of university choices and GCSE grades?
Well, absolutely. So universities will look at basically the last 4 years of secondary / high school / sixth form, so year 10 and above. When students apply to universities, they must submit all of their grades, all of their GCSEs and all of their predictions. And sometimes, for example, for US universities, halfway through year 13, we need to submit a report card as well. So it's really important that students understand that those grades, like at GCSE, they will make up part of your academic profile. And that's why it's really important to make sure that kids, are here, they get all the support that we have in place, because those GCSE grades will impact their admissions, especially to top universities, where they will be looking at 8s and 9s at GCSE to be able to be considered. It's really important.
Okay, thank you for that. So I think to finish off, what is important is thank you for your support over this past year. I know it's been a worry. Who'd have thought when you gave birth to these children that they were going to be at this point in 16 or 18 years' time, that they are the COVID generation of learners. And we understand completely how worried you must be. But what we want to do is reassure you that we have everything in hand. We are here to support your students at Sunmarke like we always do, and want the best possible outcomes for them. Thank you.